Hello friends, welcome. Today we are going to look into how we create our first Perl script. We'll go through each of these steps in detail as well as we'll try to understand what it takes to create a Perl script or a Perl program. So let's start it by first understanding the statement use strict. This is basically used for type checking in Perl. As of now, you just remember these words. This is basically creates a strictness for the entire piece of code that you are going to write below this. In Perl, if you want to create any comments, you just use hash and you write your comment here. So let's say this is my first Perl program and my first comment too. Okay. The program is all about using or trying to understand the various operators, the arithmetic operators in Perl. The arithmetic operators are addition, multiplication, subtraction, division, and modulo. So this is a very simple. This would be a very simple Perl program where we just gonna look at various operators and what exactly the results would be and how we gonna create that. This is not something really like we've been using this in our in our day-to-day life. So we just gonna make sure that this is done through a Perl program. Also, how we take the inputs, what other semantics are there in order to write our first Perl program. So let's get started now. So let's say I want the user to input two numbers and then we'll perform these arithmetic operations. So I would just simply say print and I would ask the user to enter first number and I would just terminate it with a slash n. Slash n is for new line. So basically the number would be entered here and the cursor will go to the next line. Now as I said, we have used use strict as a module. What we need to do is we need to collect this number into some kind of a scalar variable. So let's say I'm doing that using our first variable that we are going to create, that is num1. Now why we have used my. So let's say num1 is being defined or declared for the first time, and as we have used use strict, we need to have my in front of it. My says that this is the first initialization of number 1. So there are no loose variables created in Perl. So if you don't use strict, the definition of $num1 would also be correct in this particular way. But because we are using strict, every new variable when it's created for the first time should have my in front of it. And the input is from the standard input stream, so we'll just say stdin. This is the way in Perl how we can take input from the user. Similarly, we're gonna write print enter second number and I will just terminate it with slash n and we'll do the same thing saying my $num2 equal to stdin. We'll terminate it with a semicolon. Every statement in Perl is terminated with a semicolon. Now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and print these two numbers. So I'll say number 1 is equal to $num1 and similarly print number 2 is equal to $num2. So we are ready to execute our first Perl program. So what we'll do is we'll just quickly go to the command prompt and we'll navigate it to the folder where I have kept the script. We'll simply say Perl and the script name. it says enter first number, I would just simply enter it, enter second number, and if you see the result, it has printed number 1 and number 2. Now remember, for the first time when I told you, we had a statement saying enter first number, and we had added a slash n over here. So with this slash n, the cursor went to the next line. But in this particular case, we have not added a slash n. But still, if you see the output, it's on the separate lines. Why is that so? So this is simply because we have asked the user to enter the input. Now this 10 has a slash n associated with it. It has a slash n added to it. And that's the reason when we printed these two numbers that we had inputted from the user, what has happened is it has automatically terminated to the next line. So we have got number 2 equals to 20 on the second line. And because it has a slash n, you can see there is a empty line here, and then the prompt was returned back. So this would create a problem. Now how to come over that particular issue of having a slash n whenever we take input from the user? So basically in Perl you have two functions, chop and chomp. Here we'll do a chomp, and we'll just pass the variable, and similarly we'll do it for variable 2, and what we'll do is save the program and execute the program. Okay, I've just missed the semicolons, so please do remember whenever you create a Perl program, you need to have semicolons. So here we go 10, 20, and now if you see, the output is on the same line. Why is that so? Because we have chomped our input which the user had entered. So these two were on two different lines. Now these two are on the same lines. So simply, if we want them again to be on the different lines, we'll quickly just add slash n, and that will solve our purpose. Now, as I said, there are two functions, chop and chomp. So why we use chomp here, and why not chop? So remember, friends, chomp is basically to terminate the slash n from a particular user input string. But chop, what it does is, if let's say if there is no slash n associated with it, what it does is it removes the last particular character of that particular string, a letter of that particular string. So to be pretty safe, as our constraint was just to remove the slash n from it, we have used chomp. Chomp simply removes slash n and nothing else. I hope this much is pretty clear. Now we'll go to our arithmetic operation part. We have got our two input, we have got two numbers. We'll simply now do arithmetic operations on these two numbers, and we'll print the results in a continuous manner. So let's say I create a new variable that is $result, and what we'll do is we'll simply add these two numbers. So let's say $num1 and now $num2, and we'll simply say print add result, and here we print the $result, terminated with a slash n and a semicolon. We'll quickly copy these two lines, and what we'll do is we'll just change the operators here. So plus addition goes with multiplication, add changes to multiply. Similarly, we again change the operator, that is subtraction. Here instead of addition we'll say sub. Now we have division. And the last operator is our modulus operator. So friends, I hope this is pretty simple and quite self-understanding. So once we are done here, we'll quickly go ahead and execute this particular Perl script. But before that, I would just like to tell you that this particular variable that we had defined, or even for that instance our first variable that was $num1, these are called as scalar variables. We look more about scalar variables in our next lecture, but to just give you a brief idea, these are scalar variables, and these variables have dollar as their first letter, or basically scalar variables are to be written by using a dollar sign. So anything that starts with a dollar is a scalar variable. As of now, you can just keep this in mind, and we'll just execute our first poll program. So if you see, it has asked me for entering my first number. I would go ahead and say 25 as my first number. Then I would say 15 as my second number. And if you see, we have got the output. So it has reprinted our first and second number. Then it has added them, multiplied them. It has subtracted them. It has given you a division with a floating point accuracy, and it has given you a modulo result also. So this is the execution of our Perl program which we had written just a few minutes back. I hope there shouldn't be any doubt in this particular program because it is quite self-explanatory. You just need to remember the basics of what we have followed in this particular program. Things like using ustrict, defining each variable using my, and taking any input using stdin, that is your standard input, terminating each of your lines that you write in your Perl script using semicolon, else you will have an output. In case you need a new line character or a new line, you just need to have slash n in your print statements. Also, one more important thing that I would like to mention here is, if you see inside the print statement, I have used the scalar variable, and this particular scalar variable has been substituted with its value. So this is something that Perl gives you a lot of freedom to, use your scalar variables inside your strings. We look into this into our next lectures when we look in more detail about scalar variables. I hope our first Perl program was quite easy and a self-explanatory one, with a lot of understanding of how we create our create our more important Perl scripts, and probably some scripts which are more complicated in general. Thank you, friends. See you at the next lecture.